Hi, I'm Tim Berglund with Confluent. Welcome to Implementing a Data Mesh. In this final module, I want to talk you through the typical journey that you'll go through implementing a data mesh in your organization. Now, this isn't going to be like a code level, here's the framework and here's the APIs you use in this particular language, but it's more of architectural guidance for how to walk through this process. Recall that there are 4 principles of the data mesh, which we've covered in the previous 4 modules, and you can really see these as an evolution. It's not like you'd start with principle 3, that data is available everywhere, right? I mean, you'd start with domain team's own data, and then that's kind of coupled to product thinking, but you might move from there to product thinking. So you go through this 1, 2, 3, 4 sort of evolution, and 4 might be a little cross-cutting, potentially, but I generally see kind of an increasing difficulty as we go through them. And that's not to say that you should be discouraged and life's going to get harder as you move on, because really your capabilities are developing. You can't just jump in to 3. It's like you can't just run a marathon tomorrow if you've been fairly sedentary for the last year. A marathon is a very difficult thing, but you get there a piece at a time through training and practice and development of your capabilities. And that's kind of what we see in this journey. And I want to emphasize that data mesh is a concept. It has concrete implementation, but it's a set of ideas, and reducing those ideas to practice by building out the thing, this building a data mesh in your company, is a journey. Like, you didn't have one next week, and if you get started, you're not going to have a data mesh next week. There will be some point at which it becomes reasonable and defensible for you to say, hey, I've built a data mesh here, but that's not like there's some obvious threshold. It's like, how many grains of sand are required for there to be a pile of sand? It's not obvious. Like, one when you see one, but the threshold is a little fuzzy. So anyway, to do this, you get the necessary management commitment. You do this in the open, and start with some concrete initial use cases, things that ideally are contained and simple and maybe are owned by high capability, forward-looking teams if possible, and things that are visible, right? You want to have results that you can show to the business as being meaningful. And then iterate from there, from those initial use cases. And finally, while data mesh is a valuable concept, it's not everything, right? It sits next to other important things. Like, I've mentioned microservices and domain-driven design a number of times in this course. And those are important things also that are probably going to need to be a part of your life, alongside maybe even sometimes orthogonal to data mesh. And with its focus on analytical data, it's really just one of the ways that you can apply event streaming and Kafka to drive software architectural success and to create value in the business. I mean, you can use event streaming with microservices to implement strictly operational systems in an extremely powerful way, quite apart from any analytics concerns. So apply these concepts in the way that you see fit so you can make the technology useful in your company. And to help you get started, let's look at some concrete steps for implementing a data mesh in practice. Again, these are at the architectural level. We're not talking about code yet, because that stuff's just not there in the data mesh world just yet. So things you want to have in place for a successful data mesh implementation. You want data in motion to be centralized. That's a central event streaming platform. I can think of a nice one. Kafka as the open source name for that, Confluent Cloud as the fully managed service. That seems like a good idea to me, as a potentially biased source of that opinion. But yeah, I mean, you need that centralized platform. You want to nominate data owners. You need concrete owners for the key data sets in the organization. Now, you don't need concrete owners for everything, but you do want concrete owners for the things that you're chiseling off at first. And you want to make that information, that ownership information, broadly accessible. This team owns this product. That team owns that product. You want to publish data on demand, stored in Kafka indefinitely, ideally in very long retention period topics, or data that can somehow be republished by data products on demand. You want a system for schema change, all right? Owners are going to publish schemas. That's a thing that they need to own and document. Publish it to the mesh. And the form that takes, is it a wiki? Is it data extracted from Confluent Cloud schema registry and transformed into an HTML document. These are all things that can be done. There's lots of ways to get this done, but it needs to be done. That schema stuff needs to be published. There's also a process for schema change where we can negotiate that. Is that a pull request on a GitHub repo? Is it a meeting? That'll just depend on your own local organizational flavor. You want to secure event streams. This is governance. So you want access to individual event streams to be permissioned by a central authority. There are probably regulatory concerns here. So there may be literal laws enforced by a literal government. If you're a public company in the United States, there are systems you're going to have in place to do this, and likewise in other jurisdictions. So you want to be able to get data in from any database. There are source and sync connectors made available for many supported database types, and you want to make sure that that connection exists for you in Kafka Connect, just to make provisioning of new output ports and input sources to be easier. Finally, a central user interface for discovery and registration of new event streams. Again, this can take any form. Can this be an application that you create? Yes. Can it be a wiki? I keep saying wiki, and I feel like I should stop. But, for an extremely pragmatic first step, that's very simple, it can be that. But ultimately, you're going to need to support searching for schemas, for data of interest. You want to be able to preview event streams. Certainly, that's functionality that's not going to be in the day zero wiki form. And to request access to new event streams that are governed and might be out of your control. And of course, just to see some idea of data lineage. That's a thing in a mature tool that you're going to have a way of exploring. Now, I think I said earlier in this course, I'm recording this early in the summer of 2021. I'm not sure when you're watching it. But if you're doing this work, if you're working on an implementation relatively soon after this recording, you are on the leading edge. This is new stuff. I think it's important stuff. I think 5 years from now, we're going to look back at this as the early days and these early adopters as risk-taking visionaries who built out the expertise and the knowledge and paved the path for the frameworks that we'll be able to use 5 years from now and the products that evolved around this. I think this technology is a thing that really is going to have legs. So if you're walking through these steps and thinking about these things and blazing this trail, you really are making a significant contribution to the community. So I want to say thank you for that, and I really look forward to hearing the kinds of things you build.